This is how a woman might act around a man she finds attractive, and this is how she might act around one she doesn't. But most of the time, these reactions aren't obvious at all because, according to psychologists who study courtship signaling, attraction rarely shows up as a single clear behavior. It shows up as a cluster of small, often subconscious shifts. Number 1, physiological leakage. Imagine a woman mid-conversation at a party. Nothing about her words changes, but her pupils dilate slightly, her blink rate slows. Her breathing shifts to become shallower and faster. Psychologists call this physiological leakage, involuntary bodily signals that occur when the nervous system responds to attraction before the conscious mind has caught up. Unlike a smile or a laugh, these signals are almost impossible to fake or suppress because they're controlled by the autonomic nervous system, not by deliberate choice. Researchers studying pupil dilation have found that this specific response increases measurably in the presence of someone perceived as attractive, largely because dilated pupils are linked to arousal and increased cognitive engagement. From an evolutionary standpoint, this made sense. Broadcasting interest too obviously could invite rejection or social judgment, so the body develops signals subtle enough to stay mostly below conscious awareness. Number 2, proximity drift. Here's something almost nobody notices in the moment, but is easy to spot on video afterward. Over the course of a conversation, a woman who's interested will often gradually close the physical distance between herself and the man she's talking to, half a step at a time, without ever appearing to move deliberately. Researchers studying proxemics, the psychology of physical space and social interaction, call this proximity drift. It's rarely a single dramatic step forward. It's a slow narrowing of distance across several minutes, timed to feel natural rather than intentional. What makes this signal reliable is its gradual pace. A sudden, obvious step forward can feel aggressive or exposing. A slow drift lets attraction be communicated while leaving plausible deniability fully intact, an evolutionary compromise between wanting closeness and avoiding the vulnerability of an obvious approach. Quick pause. I recently launched this channel to explore human psychology, behavior, and the hidden mechanisms behind social interactions. We're still at the very beginning, so every subscription really means a lot. If this kind of content helps you better understand people and the way the human mind works, consider subscribing. It really helps me continue and create even more in-depth videos. Thank you, and let's continue. Number 3, mirrored micro-timing. Watch closely, and you'll notice something subtle in how interested people talk to each other. Their speech starts to synchronize, not the words, but the rhythm. Pauses align. Response timing shortens. One person's slight change in speaking pace gets mirrored by the other within seconds. Communication researchers call this interactional synchrony. Studies analyzing recorded conversations have found that romantic interest correlates strongly with this kind of rhythmic mirroring, more strongly, in fact, than with the actual content of what's being said. This happens largely outside conscious control. The brain's mirror neuron system engages more actively with people we're drawn to, syncing not just tone, but timing, almost like two separate nervous systems briefly falling into step with each other. Number 4, selective self-disclosure. Here's a pattern that shows up specifically with people using what psychologists call a sincere flirting style, communicating interest through emotional openness rather than physical or playful cues. A woman using this style won't lead with obvious flirtation. Instead, she'll begin selectively sharing small, slightly more personal details than the conversation strictly requires, a mention of something she's genuinely proud of, a brief admission of nervousness, a story with a small, vulnerable detail included. Psychologists call this selective self-disclosure, and research on relationship formation consistently shows that it functions as an invitation. By sharing slightly more than necessary, she's testing whether the other person reciprocates with similar openness. a subtle, low-risk way of checking for emotional compatibility before anything more direct is risked. Number 5, the cold response paradox. This one confuses people the most, and it's genuinely counterintuitive. Some women, particularly those with a more reserved communication style, become measurably more clipped and less expressive in conversation, and specifically when they're attracted to someone, not less. Researchers studying attachment and communication styles have documented this pattern repeatedly. For certain individuals, particularly those who lean toward emotional caution in general, genuine interest triggers a kind of protective withdrawal rather than open expression. The stakes suddenly feel higher, so the visible behavior contracts even as internal interest increases. The reliable tell in these cases isn't warmth in conversation. It's what psychologists call incongruent nonverbal leakage, brief flashes of engagement, prolonged eye contact, a genuine smile, physical stillness rather than fidgeting that contradict the otherwise reserved verbal tone. The words say one thing, the body briefly and involuntarily says another. Number 6, competitive repositioning. Finally, one of the more reliable indirect signals researchers have identified: how a woman responds when another woman enters the social equation. Studies on intersexual competition have found that when women perceive another woman as a potential romantic rival for someone they're interested in, subtle competitive behaviors tend to increase. Slightly sharper commentary about the other woman, a shift in posture or tone, increased effort to redirect attention back to herself. This isn't something most people consciously plan. It's a well-documented evolutionary pattern rooted in mate-guarding behavior, where perceived competition activates automatic status protective responses. If a woman becomes noticeably more competitive or subtly critical the moment another woman is mentioned or present, it's often indirectly a sign of where her actual interest lies. Taken individually, none of these 6 signals prove much on their own. Nervousness, personality, and context can all produce similar behaviors without attraction being involved at all. But psychologists studying courtship consistently find the same thing. Attraction rarely announces itself directly. It leaks out sideways through timing, distance, disclosure, and the small involuntary places where the body moves faster than the mind decides to let it. If this changed the way you read the people around you, subscribe to Think Within for more psychology videos that reveal the hidden patterns behind human behavior.